Here it is, the first ever episode of Mental Warfare, the podcast where I want to bring on people from, all over the world, different backgrounds, different ideas, new perspectives, and we're just going to kind of break down life, fighting, MMA, the mind, anything we decide to cross and cover. That's what we're going to do on this podcast. It's just going to be genuine talks about life that are not really scripted. So the first ever episode here is going to have Mitchell Tucker and James Gray. So let's get started. Mitchell Tucker recently just made his professional MMA debut after coming off of a loss at almost a 2-year layoff. And that's fascinating to me because watching how somebody comes back from adversity or defeat is a true testament of character, courage. It just puts so much to the test. So I wanted Tucker to break down what was it like, taking that loss and then having to rebuild yourself to then be successful, and what did that feel like?
Sweet. So, what's up? Glad to be the first one. Um, Look forward to see where it kind of goes. Um, no, I losing really sucks. So, that wasn't very fun, and I didn't at first I didn't take it too well and didn't know how to really take it. Um, and then it just, I realized that everybody has lost or everybody does eventually lose, and I actually remember Googling the world champions, the current world champions in the UFC, and I was like, which one of these, how many of these guys have lost? And it was like a staggering amount of them have already had a loss. So then just seeing that made me go like, okay, well, I'm new to this. I'm not very far into it. These things happen. This is part of the sport. Whatever, try to rebuild. So then I ended up just like looking back at the tape and trying to find something to learn from. And since it was only like 26 seconds long, I had to like, it wasn't like a cardio issue that got me in trouble. It wasn't anything else. Honestly, it was the mindset going in and how I reacted and all that. So it was everything else was there. Strategy might not have been, but that was all about how emotional I was going into it and different stuff like that. So once I kind of try to figure that out and fine tune that, that's when like the healing process really started.
Now, one of the most fascinating parts for me is when the light switch flips from you're still struggling with that defeat, you don't know what's next, you're not certain what path you're on, you don't know what the future holds, to I can do this. I can make this happen. This can be my reality. Do you remember that exact point? Did it blur? How did that shift take place?
Well, I wish it would have happened a little bit sooner, but um, that actually just happened. I don't know, only a couple weeks before we really started the camp. Like it kind of switched where I was like, you know what? Am I allowed to swear? Because
Yeah, of course, man. We can do
I
whatever we
mean,
want.
like I was like, fuck it, dude. I mean, it's at a point right now where like, why the fuck not? Why not try it? I mean, what's that saying where it's like, where it's like you can be 30 on your buddy's couch or whatever.
Yeah.
That whole quote or whatever.
No, absolutely. There's worse things in life than being 30, sleeping on a futon and married to a woman you're not in love with, living a life that you don't enjoy. There's worse things in the world than that. Following your heart is always going to lead you down a road that even if success doesn't come initially, the character development will take place. You will have to grow. You will be forced to reinvent yourself. And through that struggle, you'll become a person that, is a lot stronger, you know. So it wasn't an exact point. It was more of just, your mindset finally said, "Man, I'm losing by not doing it. Let's go forward."
I mean, there's like, yeah, there was a point where it's like, I don't know, in like training and stuff like that, they have like different phases where it's like your contemplatory stage or whatever, where like you're contemplating doing it, and there's like a pre-contemplating stage and all this different stuff like that. But so like I guess And that way, like I was kind of preparing for it. I just didn't necessarily like believe it or really kind of like say fuck it and commit, because that's what it really comes down to. Is that at the end of the day, once I kind of like realized that, like, okay, if I go to practice this many times a week and I give it, I push hard on it and I push myself each practice, and I do that so many times a week for 18 months, I'm guaranteed to get better. So it's like if I can just picture myself now and compare to that person in 18 months or 2 years or whatever I want to have my timeline be, that person's going to be completely different. Now, I know for a fact that if I lay on a couch all day and I eat potato chips and I just don't do anything, my body's going to adapt to that. So if I go to the gym all day and I train people all day and then I train myself and I get good, adequate rest, the person I'm going to be in 2 years is a completely different person. And that person can win a world title. It's not the person that I am today. It's the person that I'm going to be. And that person's it.
You're hitting on a really good topic. I feel like a lot of people that are chasing their goals and dreams look at what they would have to be successful in their ultimate goal, not realizing it's not what you are now. It's what you have the potential of becoming. You know what I mean? It's seeing the person that if you follow these steps that you will evolve into, the person that will be, capable of winning a world title. I do think a lot of fighters hold themselves up to the standards. They look at the people at the top and go, oh my God, 135 pounds. Cody Garbrandt is undefeated. He's got this and this and this and this. But they don't realize if you wind the clock back 4 years, Garbrandt is nowhere near what he is now. That's definitely a good point. Here's a good question for you. Why do you think as fighters we take it so devastatingly hard when we suffer a loss? When, think about in basketball or football or hockey, you take a loss, you're down about it for about an hour, a day, and then instantly you're back on the court, you're back in the game, and I mean you don't even think about that loss, you just think about the next victory. But in fighting, it tends to linger. It hits people like deep in their soul. Why do you think that is?
I think it comes down to like a primal thing, and I think that you can change that mindset to like be able to overcome things, but I think it's because you invest so much. There's so much tied into it, especially like if you're not on like checking your ego. What I've known, I don't have it all figured out, but like I've realized like if you're not checking your ego and constantly evaluating yourself in this sport, dude, you're in trouble, because if you go the day that you think that you got it figured out, like, dude, there's like a fucking 17-year-old that comes in and chokes you the fuck out. And then you're like, oh shit. And then you watch your friends fucking do good. And you're like, dude, I need to shut the fuck up and keep doing my stuff. So checking your ego is huge. And if you can kind of control that, and once you kind of lose that and you realize that, like, fighting is it's just part of the process. And if you keep having that vision, that longer vision of down the road, then it'll help, navigate through that a little bit easier. But yeah, dude, a lot of it's like checking your shit and being honest, and then, handling the things that you need to handle. And that's all you can really do. And once you kind of realize that, then I guess losing's not quite as scary. I mean, it still sucks, but.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think if you dove deep into the psychological effect of losing a fight in like a dominance thing where it's not like they ran a ball over a line more than you did, or they physically and mentally were able to defeat you with everything that you could present. And I feel like a lot of fighters look at a failure in the ring as if it was a failure of themselves, instead of realizing the person you are becoming by stepping up to these trials and tests, and the person that is being built by the hours in the room and the sacrifice that you're making and the obstacles you're overcoming. That product alone is so valuable, regardless of where you actually end up. What you're building by continuing on and rising back up time and time again is remarkable. But I do think a lot of fighters, they literally go, if I fail in the ring, I'm a failure. which is strange because if people on the outside looked at them and look at what happens when a fighter loses a fight, what's the first thing to do? They apologize to their fans and family. And what do the family and friends always do? They're amazed by them still. They're like, man, keep your head up. You're inspiring everyone else, and all of those people are going, it is absolutely amazing what my son, brother, grandson, whatever is doing. I wish I could be like that, but yet we take it as if I lost a fight, I'm a failure, and I think you're right. I think it's because of the dominance thing. It's like it's you got in the ring with one other man. There's no you can't make excuses in a fight, even though you might say, well, blah blah. We all know it's just not real. You might have had obstacles to overcome, but so did your opponent. And at the end of the day, if they were victorious, they deserved to win. So, yeah, let's talk about this for a second. Do you think the physical side of the sport is harder or the mental side of the sport?
Ooh. Um, I would definitely say the mental side is definitely harder, but also I think the mental side is crucial. If I could say that, you can be the best athlete in the world, and if you don't have your shit figured out, you're just the best athlete in the world. If you have all your ducks in a row and your head's strong, you don't necessarily have to be. I mean, you can do more with controlling the way that you handle situations, and that'll get you farther than brute strength, I believe, in the higher leagues or on a higher level. You know what I mean?
So then, and really the champions are when those two things meet. When you have the mental and the physical come together, you see the transcendence of the other people. You see, like, let's bring up Conor McGregor. Everybody talks about him. That man has figured out how to be mentally sharp with the best in the world and physically sharp. And so many people hit the scene making fun of him for doing his movement things and trying to change the game and basically reinvent the wheel because they're going, fighting's been around forever. We know what we're doing. And obviously, there is a result to either his thinking methods or his physical training methods because like him, love him, hate him, despise him, whatever, you cannot deny that he is something special. So he is like the combination of what happens when mental meets physical.
100%. Yeah, he definitely. Well, I think without the mental with Connor, then he wouldn't have done the physical because the reason that Connor is so successful in my opinion is it's not because he does have a good build for fighting, for stand-up fighting especially, but he's just he wants to grow. He wants to keep moving forward. He wants to figure something out and then tackle it. He wants to conquer different things, and it's like it's with his movement. It's with I don't know exactly what the guy's daily routine is, but if I guarantee if you follow some of it, you'll find a common trait, and that's like he's hungry to try something new, and his ego's not in play. Now he puts on a show where he's like this fucking rock star, and I'm sure he's fucking crazy. I'm sure he's a loud personality, and that's who he is. But I mean, having that drive to just like I want to conquer new things, and I think that I can do them is huge in every area of his life.
Now, here's another topic that you and I have talked about many times, and I actually wish we would have had these recorded previously, but one of the things that you tend to notice in combat sports is people that came from an extremely difficult background where they struggled most of their life, where they came from poverty or, they were bullied their whole lives or something where they felt crippled for a long period of time tends to produce these people that are just unbreakable mentally because they can cite back to where they've been and what they've experienced in their life. So to overcome the obstacle of beating a man in a ring is not such a big deal. For the people that, let's look at it this way, our team mostly are from, decent homes, not substandard of living. We're not coming out of a poverty zone. We're not growing up in the favelas of Brazil. Obviously struggle and difficulty creates the mindset of a champion. Where does that same mindset stem from for somebody that's had an easier life? How do you develop that same type of primal I will crush anything that gets in my way attitude. Like, and what's your opinion? How is that created?
I fully believe that for us, our area for SFS and the people that are local from here that we're building from here, that is the single hardest thing attain right now. Is because, like you said, I grew up in a family that my parents are still together. We've well, you brought it up, move it. We've moved a total of one town over, one time. My parents have always been really good to each other. Of course, they have their problems, but it was just like a good marriage. I had two fucking dogs. Not, I had a great upbringing. My parents were good people. Like everything was really good for me. So for me to be like in a fucking cage fighting, like I have that question. That question does reach me when I'm about to walk out sometimes. Like, what the fuck am I doing here, dude? I've got everything in in my hands that I can do with, but I still choose this because it's raw and it's if I can fight through that, then I don't know, everything's good. So I do think that's like the hardest thing that we can develop here in this area and with what we have, and I think that just starts from studying and being around people like that, or putting yourself in that situation where you're feeling how other people would feel in that situation because we all have like um, empathy towards people and stuff like that, but time to put it in a different perspective. So, man, I've had times where I'm working down in Detroit where I'm like, that week of sparring, oh man, homeboy's sharp because my head's on a swivel, and it's like,
And I remember you really got in MMA super heavily after something came up in your life that put you in like a depressed state. And I think you would agree at that period of your life, training hard and pushing yourself to the limit was easy. It was there was nothing difficult about it. Did you find that?
yeah, that's extremely good point. I went up to school, things didn't work out with a girlfriend, and I was like, oh man, I was crushed. Um, Obviously, I was a young kid. I was really even more emotional than I'm an emotional person, but I was really emotional about it, and like I had to channel my energy towards something. So it was like really easy for me to go beat the shit out of some things and like get really tired, exhausted, push myself to the point where like you know most people don't do just cuz, and that's because I was battling some demons, or if you want to call them that, or some issues. And so yeah, it's definitely difficult to be like to push yourself when you're actually in a good state, when you're actually happy. And we've had this conversation a couple times where like, man, it's like we're getting ready to go get in cage fights, and we're like, dude, everything's fine. Like my girlfriend's cool, my fucking my parents are healthy, my family's healthy, my friends are succeeding, like everything is cool. Why am I like beating the hell out of people for money?
So at that point, I really think you have to turn to like vision or legacy or what you can create, the lasting impression that you can leave behind, the influence you can have on other people, the platform that you'll have to speak from. Because yeah, we've talked about this a lot. My single biggest battle, which I'm trying to figure out a way to overcome, and I plan to get in the cage in April, but I've almost taken 2 years off. And this is the reason. When I got into MMA, when I was 15, I started doing jujitsu. I was like near suicidal, insanely depressed. My mother committed suicide as a kid. I had a relationship of 2.5 years. A girl committed suicide. I had just so much anger and frustration that this was my channel, right? And then I started training on my own and being self-taught, and I was so used to everybody saying that's a joke, you're not going to make it anywhere, you're going to be nothing. I got ridiculed like crazy for trying to make my own way, and I just channeled all that into I'm going to show you people how good I can be. So I was willing to get in the ring and take on extreme obstacles, and man, it didn't phase me at all. Like my mind was so bothered 24/7 that in that one moment where I got to take all my frustration out on somebody else was the clearest I ever was. And even when I would be training, it's my mind was not struggling with all the problems in my life. So it kept me clear. And like you said, it was effortless to train for 5 hours a day and not even think about it. And now I have such an overwhelming feeling of being proud of the people in my life and my friends and what we're creating. And like I live my life in a constant state of like, man, this is amazing. Like we are changing lives. We're going to leave a lasting impression that one day when we're old men and women, we're going to sit around and go like, we did some cool shit. But now I have to rediscover what is it gonna be? And what it lately, actually we've had some tough losses and that little bit of my edge is coming back and it's making me like, man, I need to be in that ring and show people that like you're not gonna stop me. But I've also found that I want to do it for the impression it will make on others for years to come. Maybe if I have a son one day or the people that are around me that look up to me that'll go like, wow, look at what James accomplished. You know, I fell in love with coaching, but it's not even coaching. It's watching other people achieve their potential. But then the question comes down to me, and in the last couple of months I've been asking, well then why should I not be watching my own potential reach the limit, you know? And I think uh in a weird way, I'm a giver and I'm even kind of a doormat at times where I will let people wrong me to such a level to try to do right by them, right? And what I notice is like when I'm helping others, everyone's always so quick to be like, "Oh, thank you so much, man. You're wonderful. You've changed my life." But like when I need help, there's only a few people that are truly there for me. And that has been a hard reality, but in a way it's such a blessing because now I can truly see with if my life fell apart the people that would still be there. So this is a topic where I think every fighter, if you think you're going to be a successful professional athlete, you have to know why are you doing what you're doing. And it could be something negative. It could be because you've been depressed. It could be something positive. It could be like you want to build legacy. You want to leave a lasting impression. It could be you want to live a life of not having to sit at a desk 9 to 5. I mean, when you think about a life doing something you hate, you've worked, you used to talk about, you used to come home out of the tractor and say, listen, I can't do this. My body's falling to pieces. I hate my job. Yeah, I'm 22 years old and I feel like I'm 40, and maybe you put that image in your head and say, I will fight against any obstacle to avoid that. But I think fighters have to answer that question. Why do you do what you do? So when a fight gets bad or you get tired, you have that something to draw from.
Now, yeah, I definitely see that. So like, there's a bunch of different people out there that are like helping people in different, like, Eric Thomas is one. You got to find your why. And that whole kind of thing. That's totally true. Now we all can kind of like find a why. My question is like, I can have a why for a certain amount of time. Does that why change? Does that how do you keep inventing that why or keep having it come up to play? Because at one point in my life where I was emotional in the way of depressed, my why would be I want to be a world champion. I want to show somebody one day. I want to show. This is me now. Like I'm fully giving into what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do, and that's pushed me so far. And then sometimes it's hard to bring that fire back up. So it's like, to me, I've realized since fighting in this part of my existence of my life, I've realized that there's nothing. I don't even know if I need like a why. It's whatever's there. Would that make sense?
No, I do think that makes sense. I think you could look at you draw motivation and inspiration. Let's say inspiration from different things. You might see a fight on TV that inspires you and you go, those guys are bad motherfuckers. I want to be like that. You might see a YouTube video where you're deeply moved by somebody. I do think that a why can change.
So like after my professional debut and I won, like my hypothesis of how I would feel after my fight, because what I do is I've realized that I don't really know too much as far as like I'm only 24 years old, so if everything's about experiences and how you felt during that time and how you whatever, like when I was in the cage, like I purposely made a point to how did I feel when I first came out? How did I feel when he threw his first little combo? What was I feeling actual in the moment, unbiased, not what I want to feel, but how did I feel and how can I react to that? And like I think that's the same way with everything, is like how are you feeling at that time part of your life? Regardless, your life's going to change in different ways. You just have to use that part of that time and then have You know what, dude? Your mom could be sick at one point, or everything could be going good, and you'd have to use that good positive energy and all that stuff like that to fuel your flame. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. And I don't know if it's right way of going about it or not, but like when things get good, I don't want to bring up old bad nasty shit. Like now that everything's good, I want to be like, good, we're fucking killing it. We're moving forward. My team's doing it. I'm gonna keep riding for it. So like after my fight, I thought that's how it was gonna be. But what threw me off was like it was kind of like, oh, I'm kind of drained because it was like testosterone filled. I'm fucking going after. I'm exhausted now. Like my adrenal system is cashed out. But what really lit me up was I saw the high side of it. I remembered the low side. I saw the high side of it with myself and Christian's win. And I saw it with Taylor go down. It started like, it peaked up, and I was like, dude, this is fucking badass. Taylor lost, and I kind of like, ah, fuck. And then fucking Visa lost, and I was in his fucking corner. And watching your best friend lose something that you know that he can beat or he can win in a situation, but just having someone that you care about lose at something that they're passionate about makes you see both sides of it. And I think when you see both sides of it, you get to appreciate it, and you get to go like, dude, it might not be all sunshine and rainbows, but like Viso can't quit. Like that's not an option. That like this is his experience, and it's like now he's just, once you just look at it as like this is just something he's gonna have to overcome, then you realize that you can kind of live through somebody else and kind of feel their lives and like have empathy towards them, and that's kind of what fucking lights me on fire now because you know you can learn a lot from your friends, and if you don't learn a lot from your friends and the people that you surround yourself with, then you're kind of being lazy, in my opinion.
No, I think 100%, man. Uh, I've been one of the main coaches in corners for a long time, and now you can truly see when you guys are in there competing, it feels the identical to me as if I was in the cage. My emotions are so deeply attached to the fight that when you guys lose, I feel like I just took a major loss. When you guys win, I am uplifted. But there's beauty in that. How often in life are people connecting that well? You know what I mean? So there is something special about that. And I do think we have to, getting back to the earlier topic, we have to teach our fighters to not consider one loss in the ring as a failure as a person. It's separate. It was that one experience. You are still, take away that thought completely, because you are still the man climbing for something better than you currently are, conquering your fears, chasing down your dreams, inspiring other people. And like I said, the first thing a fighter does is, I'm so sorry. Like Bobby just lost in the UFC and she came backstage, she's crying. And the first words she really said to Brian and I was, I'm so sorry. And we've been on the other side of the coin. Not even the tiniest bit of us as a coach or as a friend has any feeling of you let us down or you didn't do. Never. That's never a thought. It's literally, we are still so proud of you in your loss. And I feel like as fighters, if we put this more into perspective and said like, man, one loss doesn't define me. This is just a moment. Look, I'm still developing character that most people couldn't even grasp the concept of starting the journey of, because of the fear of what if that one failure happens, and now I'm, by being on both sides of the coin, I'm using it in my own psychology, because for a long time I was on like an 8-year undefeated streak, all first round finishes, and I lost that final fight in Brazil with my whole team, fans, friends, everybody watching, and I felt like I let the entire world down. And then, man, the more I evaluate it, I've watched the fight 6,000 times. I go, man, I was in Brazil fighting in the finals of a tournament that I shouldn't even have been in. I was competing against people with 4, 5, 6 times more experience than me inside of a cage. Wow.
Yeah.
And now I have a deep desire that I need to be back in there. The feelings that I had, even the weigh-in day when you're nervous and standing up on that scale and realizing like it's my time. There's something powerful about that, and like it's reinvigorated a different side of me, and it doesn't draw from the old I need damage and frustration and pain to rise. Now, man, I just want the opportunity. you know.
That's sweet. Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, because I don't know. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you're at a good place in your life, and um, you have a lot of people that do care about you, and you never let anybody down. Everybody was just like, "Dang, he could finish that next time." Like everybody was like, nobody was really like, and you know what it really was like for me was like when you lost, I wasn't even worried. Like usually, like people first thing that happens is like when somebody loses, you're kind of like, "Oh man, what are they gonna do?" Like with the people that I'm around, and I don't know, maybe it's just me being biased, like, but with my friends and the way I look at people, it's like, okay, we're good. We're good. We're gonna keep moving. The problem is like that doesn't always happen in my head with myself. Like, and I think if we can, as a team collectively, we can all kind of work on that together and be like, dude, look at the internal a little bit, because if I can help myself, I can help other people. And it's like that's what you've done. I mean, you're like an older brother to me in in the way of like if I could look at you and you talked about like how you give out and all that stuff like that. I would if I could look at James Gray, if I could say what James Gray is, it would be one of the first things I would say is he's a brother, not to just me, but to most people in the way that like you love people like they're your family, but you're also best friends with them, but you also treat them as like, I'm your coach at some points. Like you are a brother to so many people, and like that's huge. And once we built that atmosphere, and we all kind of have that, but I think if we all check each other a little bit more, and we're a little bit more open about how we feel when we do things, then our team is just gonna go, poof, and I think most people will.
I agree. I think one of the biggest things we need to get back to, because we're talking about how important the mind is for success, is as a team, we're gonna have to come together and truly be there for each other through all the obstacles and want the others to succeed as bad as when we compete. Because if you have a team standing around you with people that you know are going to war with you, there's no such thing as losing. You might get a setback, you might put an L in a column, but you're not losing. You're going to get back up and you're going to grow from that experience. And we're going to have a blueprint for how we develop the next stage of your career, you know? So, you know, we just got to implement it now. And that's the beauty. These talks, my goal is I want to do one of these a week. And the point is just to drum up these ideas, make people think, hear new perspective. If this helps one person, we just had a success. Just sitting in my living room, having a conversation, trying to change the world. So this is Mental Warfare. This is James Gray with Mitchell Tucker. Episode 1 is in the books. Look for these once a week. Thank you guys for listening.